Ladies and gentlemen, when the world goes silent, and you're standing there with nothing but your heartbeat and the echo of your own breath, that's when you begin to understand the weight of self-reliance. Not the romantic version of it, not the Hollywood dramatization, but the hard, unfiltered truth of what it means to walk forward when nobody is clapping. Nobody is checking on you. Nobody is pushing you. You are it, and that moment, right there, that is where the road of separation begins. The path where you choose, not because it's popular, not because it's profitable, but because it's the only way to survive without betraying yourself. People don't really understand what solitude means. They confuse being alone with being lonely, but those are not the same. Solitude is a crucible. It is where the weak break and the strong are forged. When no one's validating you, when no one's inviting you, when your phone doesn't ring, when you are not picked, not seen, not called. What do you do then? Most fold, most retreat, most conform, but a rare few, dig deeper. They pull something out of themselves that wasn't there before, something raw, something honest, something permanent, and that's the thing. Greatness doesn't bloom under comfort. You don't find your purpose scrolling through shallow praise. You find it clawing your way through the trenches of rejection, doubt, and fatigue. And the most important battles are the ones no one sees, the decisions you make at 4 a.m., when sleep is calling and you choose to stay awake to build. The hours you spend rewriting, reshaping, rebuilding, all while the world sleeps. And when it wakes up, it sees the result, but not the process. And so they say you got lucky. They say you changed, but they weren't there. They don't know that before the applause came the silence, and in that silence, you had to prove to yourself that you were worth it. Doing it alone isn't about pride. It's not a banner you wave in front of others. It's not about proving people wrong. That's a child's game. No, it's about proving something deeper. Proving that you can carry the weight of your own destiny. That if everyone left, if every door shut, if every helping hand withdrew, you would still find a way to crawl through the darkness, not because you're special, but because you refuse to quit. This is where people misunderstand the grind. They think it's about aggression. They think it's about showing off. But it's not. It's about discipline, restraint, endurance. It's about doing what's right even when it doesn't reward you. It's about waking up and moving forward when every part of you wants to lay down and disappear. And you do it not because someone told you to, but because you decided that your life was worth more than comfort, more than applause, more than compromise. Most people sell themselves for cheap. They trade integrity for inclusion. They trade their calling for convenience, but those who walk alone, truly walk alone, are the ones who learn how to think independently. They learn to listen to that whisper inside that says, there's more in you, and not louder, but deeper. Not faster, but stronger. And when the storms come, because they always do, those people don't break. They bend, they bleed, but they don't break, because they were built in isolation. They were trained in fire. There's something sacred about walking alone, something unshakable. Because when you face down your demons without a witness, without an audience, without a pat on the back, you develop a confidence that isn't loud. It's quiet. It doesn't need to speak because it's rooted. It's not chasing respect. It is respect. You become your own company, your own counsel, your own coach, and you begin to realize that most people aren't lonely. They're just unfamiliar with their own company. They've been surrounded for so long, they've forgotten how to sit with themselves and not run. But solitude teaches you. It teaches you to confront what you'd rather avoid. The shame, the regrets, the missed chances, the pain. All of it comes out in the quiet. And when it does, you face it, you wrestle with it, you bleed with it, and you come out not untouched, but refined. This is the process, the honest, grueling process of elevation. It's not quick, it's not glamorous, but it is necessary, because if you don't learn to stand alone, you will always be dependent on someone else to hold you up. There's a myth that you need a team, that you need support, that you need validation to start. No. What you need is commitment, ruthless, relentless commitment. When the lights are off, when the crowds are gone, when the mood is absent, that's when it counts. That's when it's real. That's when the muscle of character is built. When you choose to keep going, not because anyone is watching, but because you refuse to die with your gift still inside you. You see, the hardest part of growth is shedding the skin of who you used to be. And nobody can do that for you. Nobody can walk that pain for you. Nobody can face those fears, slay those dragons, bury those excuses. That is your cross to carry, and it's heavy, but it's sacred. Because in the carrying of it, you learn who you are. You discover your limits, and then you destroy them. You find out what you're made of, not because someone encouraged you, but because you refuse to give up. The world is filled with people waiting for permission, waiting for the stars to align, waiting for motivation. But the truth is, life doesn't wait for you. It doesn't pause. It moves on with or without you. And those who rise are the ones who stopped waiting. The ones who got tired of their own excuses. The ones who decided that regret hurts worse than risk. That failure isn't fatal, but quitting is. And so they go alone into the unknown, into the wilderness, into the grind, and they keep going until something inside breaks open and becomes unshakable. Success is not a finish line. It's not a single moment. It's a habit, a choice, a lifestyle. It's what you do repeatedly, especially when no one is checking. It's who you become when no one is watching, and the people who truly make it, they aren't the loudest. They're the most consistent. They're the ones who show up without fanfare, who sacrifice what's easy for what's right, who stare down fear like an old enemy and walk anyway, and they do it alone, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Pain is the price of elevation, but suffering is optional. You suffer when you resist the process, when you expect ease, when you expect applause, but when you embrace the pain, when you use it as fuel, you become untouchable, not because you're immune to hardship, but because you've made peace with it. You've welcomed it into your journey and said, "Teach me." And pain, when accepted, becomes a mentor. It will strip away your weakness. It will refine your focus. It will deepen your hunger, and it will give you something no teacher, no mentor, no coach ever could: unbreakable will. Nobody claps for the nights you stay up studying. Nobody claps for the days you eat alone because you cut off distractions. Nobody sees the sacrifices, but you do, and that's what matters. That's the foundation. That's the proof. That's the root of real power. When you know what you've been through, and you don't need to explain it to anyone. You just walk in it. You just live it. You carry the scars not with shame, but with pride. Because they are yours, you earned them, alone. When you rise without help, you no longer fear falling. Because you've been down before. You've tasted the bottom, and you built yourself from it. So what can they take from you now? What can they threaten you with? What can they offer that you can't build yourself? That's what happens when you walk alone long enough. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop asking for guarantees. You stop begging for doors to open. You build your own brick by brick. Day by day, not for recognition, but for freedom. And that freedom, it's not external. It's not about money. It's not about fame. It's the internal freedom of knowing you don't owe anyone your authenticity. You've earned your voice. You've paid for it in solitude, in struggle, in silence. And now, when you speak, the world listens. Not because you're loud, but because you're real. Because you carry weight. Because you didn't skip the process. So if you're walking alone right now, good. Let it burn. Let it mold you. Let it sharpen every edge. Because the day will come when the world will ask how you did it, and you'll smile. Not because they finally noticed, but because you no longer need them to. You already answered that question in the dark. Alone. Solitude is not a punishment. It's not a condition to escape from, and it's not a phase to resent. It's the environment in which you become honest with yourself. There's something about being alone that removes the noise, the distractions, the expectations, and when the external falls away, the internal gets louder. You begin to hear the voice you've been drowning out for years, the one that doesn't flatter you, the one that doesn't excuse you, the one that knows every compromise you've made, every opportunity you've dodged, every time you've chosen comfort over growth. That voice becomes unavoidable in solitude, and it's not there to destroy you. It's there to expose you to who you really are, not who you pretend to be when others are watching. Most people are afraid of silence, and it's not because silence is boring. It's because silence is revealing. Silence forces you to see the truth you've buried under busyness. It shows you how much of your life has been reaction instead of intention. It shows you the cracks in your character, the flaws in your habits, and the fear in your motivations. But once you get past the discomfort, you realize something powerful. You realize you've been depending on the world to give you what you should have been building internally all along. Strength, clarity, purpose, discipline. These aren't handed to you. They're not taught in a classroom. They're earned in the fire of being alone and refusing to run from it. There is no shortcut to inner strength. It cannot be borrowed or gifted. It must be developed through confrontation, not with others, but with yourself. And that confrontation only happens when you stop outsourcing your identity to other people, when you stop asking the world who you should be, when you stop seeking answers in approval and start seeking them in discipline and honesty. That is the moment when solitude becomes your ally, not your enemy, because it no longer isolates you. It purifies you. It strips away the lies, the masks, the delusions, and forces you to stand in the raw truth of who you are. And once you've seen yourself that clearly, once you've tasted that kind of authenticity, you won't want to go back to pretending. This is the paradox of solitude. It's where you feel weakest at first, but it's where you become strongest. Because when you've been alone and kept going, when you've cried in silence and still showed up the next day, when you've built something with your own hands while the world doubted you or ignored you completely, that's when your soul becomes unshakable. Because you know what you're made of, you know what you've endured, and you don't need anyone else to confirm it for you. You've passed the test that matters most, the test of being loyal to yourself even when no one is watching. Strength built in solitude doesn't crumble under pressure, because it was built without shortcuts. It was built in the absence of encouragement, in the absence of comfort, and in the absence of praise. When no one believes in you, and you choose to believe anyway, when no one shows up for you, and you show up for yourself anyway, that's not just character, that's power. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade when trends shift or followers disappear. That's the kind of power that stays with you in every room, every challenge, every season of life. And the people who carry that kind of power, they don't need to announce it. You can feel it in the way they walk, the way they speak, the way they refuse to break when life hits hardest. It's not that people who walk alone don't feel pain. It's that they've learned to use pain. They've learned to take the heaviness of solitude and turn it into momentum. They've learned that isolation is not the absence of connection. It's the foundation of independence. It's where you build the capacity to lead, to create, to endure, and to excel without being carried. You don't build a legacy by being dependent on company. You build it by becoming the type of person who doesn't fold when the spotlight's gone and the support dries up. Because legacy is born in silence. It's born in the hours no one sees, the sacrifices no one thanks you for, the resilience no one claps for. People want strength, but they don't want the loneliness that often comes with building it. They want wisdom, but they don't want the isolation that makes it possible. But the truth is, the most important transformations don't happen in the crowd. They happen in the quiet. When you're sitting with your journal, or your plan, or your regrets, and you're deciding, again, to keep going. That's where growth becomes permanent. That's where change becomes identity. When no one is pushing you and you push yourself. When no one is cheering and you choose to perform anyway. Not for recognition, but because that's who you've decided to become. You cannot depend on others to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. That imbalance will break you. It will keep you stuck in cycles of approval, chasing validation instead of values. And the only way to fix it is to get alone with yourself. To face the fear that you're not enough and answer it with action. To sit in the silence until it no longer scares you, until it becomes familiar, until it becomes fertile ground for your next version. And you will fail, you will fall, you will question everything, but in that process you'll build something unshakable. Not outside, but inside. Not flashy, but foundational. And once you've built that, no one can take it. Because they didn't give it to you. They didn't help you earn it. And they can't shake it with words or status or doubt. Because it was formed in a place where their opinion didn't matter. That's what solitude teaches you. That strength built in silence speaks louder than 1,000 voices trying to distract you from your calling. And once you've lived that, really lived it, you'll stop chasing company. You'll start choosing alignment. You'll stop craving applause. You'll start cultivating purpose. And that shift, that internal shift, is the foundation of everything worth building. Solitude sharpens you. It strengthens you by forcing you to define your principles, your priorities, and your path without interference. It forces you to lead yourself, which is the prerequisite to leading anything or anyone else. If you can't lead yourself through boredom, through doubt, through fatigue, through fear, then no title or position will fix that. The world is full of people in leadership roles who can't even lead themselves out of bed when motivation is gone. But the man or woman who has mastered solitude, who has trained in the darkness, that person has something rare. They have self-mastery, and that is more valuable than any applause or external support. When you've been alone with your goals, your pain, your mistakes, your purpose, and kept building, you become solid, you become centered, you stop chasing every distraction, you stop folding to every storm. Because you've learned that storms don't mean failure, they mean growth, they mean resistance, they mean you're doing something worth attacking, and you respond not with panic but with patience, not with excuses but with execution. That's the fruit of solitude, not emptiness but excellence, not withdrawal but wisdom, not loneliness but legacy, because only in the furnace can something truly indestructible be forged. Discipline is not something that comes naturally to most people. It is not a gift. It is not a personality trait you either have or you don't. It is a decision you make repeatedly until it becomes who you are. And the truth is, discipline is far more valuable than applause. Applause is temporary. It fades the moment people get distracted. Discipline, on the other hand, is eternal. It becomes the foundation you can build your life on when everything else falls apart. When you chase applause, you become dependent on noise. When you live by discipline, you become grounded in silence. It's easy to work hard when people are watching. It's easy to act focused when the crowd is there, when the cameras are rolling, when your name is being spoken. But that kind of effort is conditional. It's performance, not purpose. And performance dies when the stage disappears. But if your actions are rooted in discipline, you'll keep going even when nobody shows up. You'll do what's right, not because someone is watching, but because you've trained your character to act with consistency, regardless of recognition. Applause is a drug. It feels good in the moment, but it fades quickly. And if you rely on it, you'll spend your whole life chasing attention instead of chasing growth. The problem with applause is that it makes you soft. It makes you addicted to being liked, to being praised, to being seen. And once you get used to that, you start making decisions based on how others will react, not based on what you know is right. You compromise your mission for popularity. You dilute your message for acceptance, and over time you lose the very thing that made you worthy of applause in the first place. Your edge, your authenticity, your truth. But discipline doesn't bend to opinion. Discipline is indifferent to applause. It keeps going, keeps pushing, keeps building, even in silence, even in rejection, even in doubt. Real progress happens in the shadows. It happens when you choose the hard path without an audience. It happens when you repeat the small habits, the boring tasks, the uncomfortable routines, day in, day out, without needing a reward for it. The gym sessions when you're tired, the writing sessions when you're uninspired, the early mornings when no one is awake. That's where success is born, not in the final product, but in the repetition of discipline. Applause celebrates the outcome. Discipline lives in the process. And the process is where transformation takes place. You don't rise by being seen, you rise by being consistent. You rise by showing up when it's hard. You rise by sacrificing ease for purpose. Applause will come and go. There will be seasons where everyone's watching and you're getting the credit, the attention, the praise. And then there will be seasons where it feels like no one sees you, no one appreciates you, no one understands the weight you're carrying. In those moments, you'll want to quit if you've built your identity on applause. But if you've built your identity on discipline, you'll keep going because you understand that growth isn't seasonal. It's daily. Most people want to be extraordinary, but they refuse to do the ordinary things consistently. They want the highlight without the grind. They want the transformation without the repetition. But discipline doesn't care about how you feel. It doesn't need motivation. It needs commitment. And commitment is not emotional. It's rooted in conviction. You do it not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. You do it because the mission is bigger than your mood. You do it because you've made a decision to honor your potential, not your comfort. The world will always reward what it sees. It claps for results. It cheers for wins. But it doesn't see the nights you sacrificed sleep. It doesn't see the meals you skipped, the events you declined, the distractions you resisted. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's quiet. It's lonely. But it is the birthplace of everything worthwhile. When you value discipline over applause, you start measuring success differently. You stop asking, who's watching me? And start asking, did I keep my promise to myself today? Because at the end of the day, that's what discipline really is, keeping the promises you made to yourself long after the excitement is gone. Applause can change you if you're not careful. It can inflate your ego. It can make you think you've arrived. It can trick you into believing you've already become the person you're still working to be. But discipline humbles you. It reminds you that you're never finished, that there's always another level, that mastery is a lifelong pursuit, not a momentary achievement. When you're disciplined, you don't get distracted by praise. You don't slow down when people notice. You keep your head down and keep working, because you know that the only scoreboard that matters is the one inside your soul. The one that counts effort, not attention. When you choose discipline over applause, you become dangerous because you're not moved by opinion, you're not swayed by praise, you're not derailed by rejection, you are steady, you are focused, you are grounded. And that kind of person is unstoppable, not because they never fail, but because they never stop. The person who lives by discipline will always outlast the one who lives by applause, because applause fades. Trends change, people forget, but discipline compounds. It builds on itself. It makes you better, sharper, stronger, every day, every year, every decade. One of the most dangerous things you can do is succeed too early without the discipline to sustain it. That kind of success crushes people. It gives them the rewards of hard work without the habits to maintain them. But when you build your life on discipline, every success becomes sustainable. Because you didn't stumble into it, you earned it, you built it from the ground up, piece by piece. And if it were taken away tomorrow, you could rebuild it, because the real value isn't in what you achieved, it's in who you became to achieve it. People will forget your wins. They will forget your speeches, your awards, your applause. But they will not forget your character. They will not forget your consistency. They will not forget the example you set by showing what it looks like to live with purpose, regardless of recognition. That is what discipline gives you, not just results, but legacy, not just progress, but principles. It gives you something deeper than momentary success. It gives you the kind of person you can be proud of when no one is watching. And that's what matters most. Who are you when the lights are off? Who are you when no one is clapping? Who are you when the motivation runs dry? That's when your character is revealed. That's when your real life is being written. Not in the highlights, but in the habits. Not in the applause, but in the discipline. Pain is misunderstood. It's treated like a curse, avoided like a plague, silenced with distraction, drowned with noise. But pain is not your enemy. It's your instructor. It's the clearest voice you'll ever hear, because it speaks in a language that cuts through lies, through delusion, through ego. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't ask for permission. It shows up when you've gone too far from what's real, or when it's time to grow past what's familiar. It doesn't knock. It breaks in. But not to destroy you, to wake you up. Most people run from pain their whole lives. They structure their decisions around comfort. They avoid risks, avoid challenges, avoid confrontation, not because they're weak, but because they never learned to see pain properly. They were taught that discomfort is bad, that suffering is failure, that wounds are shameful. But that's a lie. The truth is, pain is the price you pay for becoming more than what you were. It's the signal that something meaningful is happening. And if you ignore it, if you run from it, if you mask it, you miss the transformation, you delay your evolution, you cheat yourself out of the strength pain was trying to give you. Pain doesn't show up without reason. It's not random. It's not cruel. It's targeted. It reveals your limits. It shows you where you still have work to do. It pulls you back into alignment. When your body is in pain, it's telling you something needs attention. When your mind is in pain, it's pointing to something unresolved, something neglected, something true that you've been avoiding. And if you listen, if you sit with that pain, if you stop running and start observing, you will find the wisdom it was carrying the entire time. We grow through pain, not in spite of it. The moments in life that change you the most are the ones that hurt the most, not because suffering is noble, but because pain forces you to make decisions. It puts pressure on your soul. It strips away everything unnecessary, and in that pressure, in that stripping, you discover what really matters. You find out what you're made of. You stop pretending. You stop blaming. You stop running. Because pain doesn't let you lie to yourself for very long. It corners you with the truth, and in that confrontation, something new is born. The strongest people are not the ones who have avoided pain. They're the ones who have learned how to carry it. They've learned how to feel deeply and keep moving. They've learned that the depth of their wounds is often equal to the height of their potential. That the more they've suffered, the more they're capable of offering. Not in theory, but in lived experience, pain has refined them. Pain has shaped their discipline, their compassion, their endurance. It didn't give them answers, but it made them ask better questions. It made them dig deeper. It made them face themselves. There's a certain kind of clarity that only pain can give you. When you're hurting, everything becomes simpler. Your priorities sharpen. Your values come to the surface. You stop being distracted by what's petty and start being pulled toward what's real. Pain humbles you. It removes your illusions of control. It reminds you that life doesn't owe you comfort, and that nothing worth having comes without sacrifice. And in that humility, in that surrender, you gain access to a deeper kind of strength. Not the strength of resistance, but the strength of resilience. The kind that bends but doesn't break. The kind that bleeds but keeps walking. Pain also teaches you compassion. It opens your eyes to the silent battles others are facing. It keeps you from being arrogant, from being judgmental, from assuming you know what someone else is going through. When you've suffered deeply, you carry a kind of gentleness that can't be faked. You see beyond the surface, you become patient, you become present, not because you read it in a book, but because pain carved it into your soul. And that kind of understanding is rare. It's valuable, it's earned, and it changes the way you lead, the way you speak, the way you live. You will not avoid pain in this life. That's not the goal. The goal is to be equipped for it. The goal is to have a relationship with it that empowers you instead of cripples you. Most people try to numb their pain. They bury it under addiction, under achievement, under distraction. But buried pain doesn't die. It festers, it grows, it shows up in your decisions, in your relationships, in your patterns. If you want to be free, you have to feel it. You have to go into it, not to drown in it, but to move through it. To understand it, to harvest the lessons hidden inside it, pain is also a revealer of truth. It will tell you who's real and who's not. It will expose the foundations of your life, what's solid and what's fragile. When everything's going well, it's easy to pretend. It's easy to believe the stories you tell yourself. But when the pressure comes, when the loss hits, when the failure breaks open the parts of you thought were healed, that's when the truth surfaces. And it's not there to shame you. It's there to free you. Because you can't build a strong life on lies. You can't build a meaningful purpose on unhealed wounds. And pain won't let you pretend anymore. There's a power in embracing pain, not glorifying it but honoring it, not seeking it but facing it. When you stop avoiding discomfort, you start unlocking strength. You start building a mind that doesn't panic at struggle. You start developing a heart that can handle disappointment. You stop being fragile. You stop being reactive. You start being grounded, and that groundedness, earned through pain, is what carries you through the storms life will throw at you. Because storms are coming, whether you're ready or not. But when you've already faced yourself, when you've already been through the fire and come out stronger, storms don't shake you. They reveal you. Pain also purifies your intentions. It asks you, why are you doing this? If you're chasing success to escape insecurity, pain will find you. If you're chasing validation to hide from your own doubt, pain will call it out. And if you let it, it will redirect you, not away from your goals, but toward the truth behind them. It will push you to build from a place of wholeness, not fear, from a place of integrity, not ego. Pain doesn't want to destroy your vision. It wants to strip it of illusion. And once you see clearly, you can build something that lasts. Every time you go through something painful and choose to grow from it instead of retreat, you expand your capacity. You expand your emotional bandwidth, your mental fortitude, your spiritual depth. Pain stretches you, and the greater your capacity to endure it, the greater your ability to lead, to create, to serve. You become a vessel that doesn't leak when life gets heavy. You become the person others turn to, not because you're perfect, but because you're proven. Because you've been through the fire and didn't come out bitter. You came out better, not because it didn't hurt, but because you refused to let it be wasted. You can waste pain. You can ignore it, numb it, drown it, blame others for it. Or you can use it, you can study it, you can let it show you who you are and who you're capable of becoming. You can let it build something in you that success never could, because success may impress people, but pain transforms you. And transformation is what creates a life of meaning, of impact, of legacy. Pain doesn't last forever, but the strength it gives you does. If you're willing to let it teach you, pain becomes the mentor that never lies, never flatters, never fails to make you stronger. Power that is handed to you can be taken. Power that is borrowed from the approval of others can be revoked. Power that comes from being liked, followed, admired, it's all fragile, it's built on sand. It depends on external conditions. It lives in the hands of those who gave it to you. But the power you build within yourself, through sweat, pain, failure, discipline, that power is yours. It is not on loan. It is not temporary. It is not subject to trends or applause. It cannot be revoked by rejection. It cannot be shattered by opinion, because it is not rooted in what others see. It's rooted in what you became when no one was watching. There is something different about a person who has built their strength from the ground up. You can see it in their walk. You can hear it in their voice. You can feel it in their presence. They don't beg for respect because their life demands it. They don't talk about how tough they are because they've lived through what most people wouldn't survive. They don't chase approval because they've already earned their own. That kind of power is rare, and it doesn't come overnight. It comes from years of choosing responsibility over excuses, from walking through failure without folding, from rebuilding again and again, not because someone offered them help, but because they refused to be broken. Self-built power is forged in silence. It's not gained in the spotlight. It's not developed through comfort. It grows in the lonely hours, the cold mornings, the unseen sacrifices. It grows every time you keep going when there's no reward. Every time you show up when motivation is gone. Every time you choose discipline when chaos surrounds you and no one sees it while it's happening. They don't see the grind. They don't see the pain. They just see the outcome and think you were lucky. But you weren't lucky. You were relentless. You didn't wait for the right time. You made time irrelevant. You didn't wait to feel ready. You acted when it was hard, when it was uncertain, when it was scary. And because of that, your power doesn't shake when pressure comes, because you were built in pressure. There's no peace in having power that's given to you by others. You'll always feel the tension of holding on to something that's not really yours. You'll live trying to impress, trying to maintain an image, trying not to fall. And that fear, that insecurity, it owns you. But when you've built your power through your own struggle, that fear disappears. Because you know if it all falls apart, you can do it again. You've done it before. You didn't start from comfort. You started from nothing, and that memory is your anchor. You don't fear loss because you know how to rise from it. You don't fear silence because that's where you started, and you don't fear rejection because that's what shaped you. When you build your own power, you also build unshakable confidence, not arrogance. Not entitlement, real confidence, the kind that doesn't need to be loud, the kind that doesn't need attention. It's the quiet knowing that you can handle what's coming, that you can endure what others avoid, that you can walk alone if necessary. This kind of confidence comes from the experience of doing hard things without applause, from failing, adjusting, learning, and trying again. It comes from knowing you've paid the price to be who you are. And because of that, you don't shrink for anyone. You don't play small. You stand your ground not with ego, but with truth. There is a clarity that comes with self-built power. You don't waste time proving yourself. You don't need to argue or convince. You let your consistency speak. You let your scars speak. You let your journey speak, and people feel it. They may not know your story, but they feel the weight of what you carry. Because that kind of strength leaves a mark. It makes people pay attention, not because you asked for it, but because you earned it. And that's the difference between chasing attention and commanding respect. One depends on being seen, the other is the result of being real. The more you build yourself, the less you rely on others to define your worth. You stop seeking validation and start building value. You stop waiting for a seat at the table and start carving your own. And the table you build has weight, because it wasn't handed to you. It was built through struggle, through rejection, through perseverance. It carries your fingerprints, your effort, your sacrifice. And because of that, it cannot be taken from you. People can walk away, support can disappear, circumstances can shift, but what you've built inside, your will, your discipline, your clarity, that stays with you. Most people want the benefits of power without the burden of building it. They want the respect, but not the responsibility. They want the results, but not the repetition. But the truth is, you can't shortcut this. Real power comes at a cost. It requires you to face yourself, to strip away the excuses, to confront your laziness, your fear, your insecurity, and not just once, but daily, to keep showing up, to keep pushing when no one believes, to keep rising when nothing seems to change. That process, that commitment, is what builds power that cannot be shaken. When you've walked through pain and kept your integrity, you earn power. When you've failed and refused to quit, you earn power. When you've been overlooked and kept showing up, you earn power. Every act of self-discipline, every quiet decision to keep going, every unseen effort. It all counts, it all adds up. And over time, it builds a foundation that cannot be cracked. A foundation that outlasts storms. A foundation that doesn't care who notices, because it wasn't built for show. It was built for purpose. Self-built power also gives you something most people never find: freedom. The freedom to live on your terms, to pursue what matters to you, not what's popular, to say no without fear, to stand alone without apology. Because when you don't owe your strength to anyone, you don't have to perform for anyone. You don't have to seek permission. You don't have to beg for opportunity. You create your own. You become the source. And when you become the source, you become limitless. That's why it's dangerous to depend on others for your sense of strength. Because people change, support fades, opinions shift. But when your strength comes from within, from the fire you walked through, from the pressure you endured, you become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get harder to break. You become your own foundation, and that foundation is not for sale. It's not for rent. It's not up for debate. It's yours. You built it. You earned it. You live it. Nothing external can match the power that comes from internal mastery. No title, no status, no applause can compete with the fire that burns in someone who has overcome themselves. Because the greatest battle you'll ever face is not against others. It's against your own limits. Your own distractions, your own doubt. And when you win that battle daily, when you defeat the version of yourself that wants to quit, to hide, to settle, you gain something eternal. Power that no one gave you and no one can take. Power that doesn't need a platform to exist. Power that lives in your habits, your values, your grit. Power that stays with you forever because it was born in the struggle and refined in the silence.